everybody, and welcome to Bugbear's Basement. I am Chester C. Busby III, and I am elated and excited to have you here today because today we are doing the character creation or zero session for our Vampire the Masquerade game that we're going to be doing, and we're really looking forward to this. Happy to have you guys in here. I see we have Sharati in here. I'm not sure that's a new face to me, but awesome. We got Eagle 43. We got Roger Heller as well. So thank you guys very much. Of course, we do appreciate those subs and those likes. Those always help us out. We have been growing. It's really cool. But seeing as this is a live stream, the thing that helps us the most is hitting that share button and letting your family and friends and extended community know what's going on. Do also keep in mind that we have a bunch of links down below. We'd love for you guys to check them out. One of those links, which is something we usually don't do, but I just thought it was so cool that I'm running with it until the campaign ends. But you have Travis Gibb and his Broke Down and Forward Dead Bodies campaign, which is going on a Kickstarter. Of course, an Indiegogo comic, and he gave us the issue 1 in digital form, and it's sitting right there. You can go click that link and go read it. If you like it, you can go over and back and support Travis and his group in that endeavor. I thought that was really cool. So definitely check that out. It's free comic. Why not, right? We have other links as well. We'd love for you guys to check that out, particularly our fan speak on Facebook, which is a growing community. We've seen that becoming quite large, and we're really happy with it. And the cool thing about being on that group is we don't limit you like a lot of other groups do. You can put anything you want in there. We want that to be an open community conversation. So you can put yourself reviews, your opinions, ideas. You can post, you can shill any kind of work you were working on as well. No problem. I know that's not a normal thing to do, and I'm sure some people are yelling at me, Chester, what are you doing? But nah, dude, I want a free, open community, and you know what? It's worked beautifully. So definitely go over there, be part of that. But today, like I said, we're going to do our zero session here, and we're going to lay out our characters. Now, of course, today we are doing Vampire the Masquerade, so I thought I would, add a little bit of just kind of here in the beginning an understanding of what that is. Now, just so you know, Vampire, as a game that came out in the 90s, and it was different. It was early '90s, and it was very different. Up until that point, we played a lot of D&D, and of course, some of the superhero games like Champions or Marvel superhero role playing game or Villains and Vigilante. We also had some of the we had some of the other more obscure D&D games that have style games that have kind of existed. But then Vampire came out and had a completely different system and had a completely different feel and a completely different idea. And the idea with Vampire was it really kind of lays down like this: Cain, the mark of Cain. The creators had the idea that the mark of Cain was vampirism. And what Cain did was he went and he went for a long time and did nothing, but eventually he got kind of lonely, I guess. So he created three vampires to stay with him, and of course they in turn created their own. So with Cain being the first generation, and then once he created the second, they created the third, and a whole bunch of crazy things happened, and he outlawed it. But then he went walkabout, and they ended up creating their own. There was a big, old, huge war, yada 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 yada. So basically, what our world looks like today is we have third generation vampires, which no one sees and assumes they're all sleeping, and are terrified that when they wake up, because the last time we woke up was about 2,000 years ago. So they nearly wiped out the entire vampire race. But what they did in the end was they left one childer, which is simply meaning a vampire of a certain type, one childer for each clan alive. And it is from those 13 clans, which, most say 12 these days, although there is a 13th that is kind of hidden. But those 12 clans still exist today. So, in truth, there are some vampires that might be coming from Egyptian time or even before that. For the most part, all the vampires in the world are really sitting around 2,000 something years old, because that's what the third generation did, the antediluvians, before they went to sleep. And therefore, this is the world they're in, and people are worrying that they're coming back, and it has that kind of backdrop going on, the style and drama. And in this time, they had run into many problems along the years. But in 1452, I believe it was, the Inquisition had was burning and murdering everything, and particularly they were after the vampires. And because of this, you had a group called the Camarilla, which is an ancient, powerful group, come together and they created the Masquerade. And in the Masquerade, they decided that we need to stay hidden because if we don't, these humans are going to murder us out completely into extinction. And this is where the Masquerade came. And of course, that's what the name of the game is. It's Vampire the Masquerade. And the idea is to follow the rules so you stay hidden. Now, there's tons of detail and so much lore involved in this game, which is why I suggest it. And it's kind of interesting because this kind of vampire here that we're all used to is not really what we're dealing with here. And before I get any deeper into this, I do want to come over here and introduce our people and get their opinion before I rattle on too long. So let me come over and say hello to Comic Book Bob first. How you doing, dude?
I'm good, man. Looking forward to this.
All right. Now you heard my little mini spiel. I mean, honestly, if you guys understand Vampire: The World of Darkness at all, talking to the chat here, then you understand how deep this well goes, and it is super, super, super deep, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
I just try to give a really super fast overview. But would you like to add anything to my overview, real quick?
No, I think you hit it pretty good. The idea that this is a this isn't a normal role playing game. It's got an incredibly deep mythology to
Yeah,
it. And like I was talking to some of the guys earlier, I've played sessions of this game where you literally don't roll a single die.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, awesome. How about you, Mox? You got anything to add to what's going on here and laying out Vampire the Masquerade to the folks?
I agree with comic book Bob. You pretty much hit it on the head. This is a far more in depth game than Dungeons and Dragons than a lot of them, and it can be violent, it can be adult, it can be gruesome. It's a lot of fun.
It is.
Yeah, you're playing a monster.
You are. That's true. And what about you, Dodge? What gets add to that?
I think the interesting thing because I kind of I heard of this game before, but I've never played it. But in the last like 3 days, I've been immersing myself in some of the lore and just watching a lot of videos and a lot of people playing it, and it's really interesting how yeah, it is really dark. But then again, you can still kind of be in the gray area, almost the anti-hero. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's really an interesting role-playing experience. It looks like.
No, I agree. I think it's extremely interesting. I was very happy that I ran into it, and of course, over the years, I did play in this game, which is interesting. A lot of stuff I rarely play. I'm usually the storyteller, DM, GM, or whatever you want to call it. But I did play a little bit before I started becoming the storyteller again. But it's a lot of fun. This is a really good game. So. Now, what we're going to do today, guys, is we are going to create our characters. Now, these guys have already actually created their characters, but we're going to go kind of through the process a little bit and make sure we have a good balanced team here. Because what we're doing here is a bit different than we had done before. And the point of it is, excuse me, the point of it here is we wanted to have a good, solid group of role players that know what they're doing. We did an introductory here on the with the God's Blood. We did for Marvel Superhero role playing game, and we also did the over on Dilla Draws. We did the D&D game over in Brightleaf. But those were very much introductory. We were explaining everything as we go along. I don't think I'm going to do much explanation in this. Matter of fact, I think it'd be better not to. We're going to just kind of dive deep into it and let you guys try to hang on for dear life. I think that's going to be a lot more fun. But we do want to lay the characters out. So the first thing I want to do is explain where we are and what we're doing. Okay. Now, And just bear with me, guys, here as I get through this. All right. Now, what we're doing is in this game, when you're setting it up, you have a chronicle. Now, the chronicle is kind of what we would call the campaign in D&D. And the name of this chronicle is just simply named like most vampire games. This is called Boston by Night. Simple. All right. Now, when we get into our stories, which will be a run of a bunch of chapters, and each story can be very different from the other, which is pretty standard role playing stuff. I'm not going to name the story right now. We're going to start with, but just so you know, the chronicle is Boston by Night. Now, the important thing here when we're looking at Boston, let me bring this up real quick. Where am I here? All right, so I'm going to come over here and share with you guys so you can see this very clearly. And doing things here on at first when we started doing role playing on the through the Hangouts here, I thought that this might be a little bit weird, but actually it works out really cool because what you can do in this game is you can storybook your game as you're going along, and that's fun. Right, and it works out really, really well. But this right here, this is in a neighborhood in Boston, which is called Roxbury. Now, I chose Boston particularly because I've lived in many cities in my life, but I know this one really well because I went to university here in Boston, and I had my professional music career started in Boston, et cetera, et cetera. So I know it pretty well. Now, in Boston, there are some troubled areas, even though it's one of the most expensive cities in the world to live in, which is a true statement. There are some really rundown places. Now, Roxbury here is in the southwest of Boston proper, and it's right near Dorchester and various other well-known places. But Roxbury has a 99 out of 100 violence rating. Just so you know, this is one of the worst neighborhoods in America, and it's in one of the most expensive cities in the world. Interesting, eh? But Roxbury has a lot of trouble. So what I've done is, and now some of you following along, you might know Vampire really well, and therefore you know the city of Boston inside the World of Darkness. I've changed it, so everything you might have read about Boston in the World of Darkness, it's not the same. I've changed it completely. Inside this city, since its inception in the early 1640s, 1650s, you had the mages, the magi, in this world of darkness are the ones who founded most of the things in Boston, and they've controlled it ever since. Now, there have been several incursions from vampires that have tried to take the city, but they've always failed. They've always failed. So, for nearly 400 years, Boston has been held by the mages, and they've withstood every invasion of vampires that have tried. But currently, we're sitting in a different situation. Now, these guys all live in Boston. Some of them have been here a long time. Some of them have been here a short time. But the mages in Boston, they're not big fans of vampires, but they're not necessarily, unless you're a Tremere, they're not necessarily going to kill you offhand anyway. So what they did was regulated the vampires to this area, and they actually set up 4 havens. And this is one of them, the thing I'm showing you right here. This is the haven where our team is living in. They've been delegated to this. Now, the rule is very simple. They must hunt in Roxbury only. And of course, they can do what they want, but if they get caught doing something outside, they're in trouble. And although they can move around the city, they in general want to keep them where they can keep an eye on them. And these guys living in this haven also understand that to the west of them, in the west part of the city, the Lupin or the werewolves actually control quite a bit of territory. So this city is split between 3 groups. You have the mages who hold an iron fist control of the city. You have the Lupins that are for some reason allowed to exist in the west of the city, and we have a very small group of vampires that are living in Roxbury. Now, this is the general layout of where we are, and in this haven, their home, which is right here, there's actually I guess he'd be like the house boss or the house manager or something like that. He's been appointed by the mages, and his name is Benny Tillman, and he's actually a Bruja, which our group is not. Our group are Caitiff, which we'll get to that in a moment. But Benny is a Bruja, and he's in charge. And he's been here for quite a while. But Benny is a super laid back guy. He's not. He's more about the party, and he's not about any politic. He doesn't care about that kind of stuff. He's very easy to get along with. And Benny actually runs in the basement of this thing. Underneath there is a big, huge basement, and he runs a a little speakeasy type of place, which of course he calls Benny's. And many of the other vampires in Roxbury will come and hang out in this little nightclub and chit chat with each other. But this, other than that, this place is actually our players' haven. So, laying it out like that, guys. Let's come over here, and I'll come back to you guys over on this side. Uh, Tell me. Let's start with Comeback Bob. Comeback Bob, why don't you tell us how is your character going to interact with this layout I just gave you? How are you living in this world?
Well, the character I'm designing, I'm
Mhm.
still working on his background a little bit, but he's basically a hacker information broker.
Okay.
So he has almost no combat abilities. Lives completely by his wits, by his mind, and he survives this and finds his place here by making him by just being useful. He's a source of information for pretty much everybody. And since he's clanless, he doesn't really have any loyalties to anybody. So he's willing to work and sell to anybody.
Okay, well,
Um,
you mentioned you're
so
clanless or caitiff as we use in this world. And of course, caitiff is used has two meanings in this world, really. Why don't you go ahead and explain to them, Bob, what a caitiff is?
a caitiff is a person who is not associated with one of the 13 clans that Chester talked about. That can happen in a couple of different ways. Um, One, it could be you used to be part of a clan and you were basically ousted. And the other is you were created by somebody who's basically like a mixed blood. They just don't know. They don't know what you are,
Right.
and that comes with it comes with benefits and it comes with negatives. The benefit is that as a player character, you're not restricted to certain disciplines and whatnot
That's right. That's
at the
right.
very beginning, but you are basically looked at like you're the lowest. You're the scum of the earth, basically, to most vampires. You exist to be exploited,
There you go.
and
And by his definition he just gave, that would mean there's actually a third meaning. They also have any vampire that has in this game we have a statistic called humanity. And humanity goes from 10 to 0, basically. And if you actually, in most games, if you get to 0 humanity, you lose your character. For me, if you get to 3 humanity, you lose your character. So I run a stricter game. All right, just keep that in mind, guys. I'm sure it won't be a problem, but I don't mind characters floating around 7 to 5. A lot of times that's happens. But if you get to 3 humanity or low, you are too much of a threat for a mage to allow you to live. So you're marked. But when you have those low humanity vampires, this is also they call them caitiff, meaning it's a
yeah,
degenerate, wild thing. That it's not vampire, it's not human in a way. So caitiff is also a very disparaging word, which gets thrown on these guys. But like you said, there's good and bad. There is freedom involved as well. But all right, so now we know you're a hacker, you're a computer guy. About how old are you? When did you get turned? The year is 2019. We're running in modern time. So, well, when was your character
he
turned?
he got turned in the late '80s,
Okay.
so he's been around for about 30, 35 years. He's not particularly old. He's not. He doesn't have any exceptional generation. He's 13th gen, like most newborn vampires. And like I said, he's just been kind of thrown to the wind. So he has no real allegiance, especially considering his the status that he has and whatnot.
Okay.
So it's all about survival.
So how long has this character have a name yet?
Um, yeah, he does. Hang on, let me pull my character sheet up here.
Yeah, if matter of fact, all of
Um,
you guys, if you could share your character sheet on your right now, that would be really useful. And I'll go through and let everybody take a look at those character sheets. You guys know
Okay.
how to use the share buttons and stuff like that?
Let me see here. The interface is different from when I usually use
Yeah, this is not
Hangouts.
YouTube. We are going through Streamlabs, but if you go up in the top right corner, you see three little dots. You could just click that, and
Yep.
you can screen share from there.
Okay, I see. I found it.
Yeah.
Okay. Select window or screen.
In some ways, I like it better than YouTube because the options for screen sharing is well, everything that exists on your computer, so it's a lot easier.
Okay. There we go. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Okay.
The other guys
That's
are good to
good.
go, though. Thanks, guys. There we go. Now we can see it. All right. Excuse me. So, what's the name here? It's a little
Okay.
bit small for me to see, and my boomer eyes.
Okay. It's okay. This is actually his hacker name. It's Zero Plague,
Okay,
and
that's
his
cool.
real name is his real name is this is the name he's actually going to use, but his real name is Zach Parker.
Zach Parker. Okay, cool. It's cool. That's
Yeah.
very, very nice. All right, so we have Zero Plague. He's a hacker. He's been around since the 80s. Now, down here in your merits or flaws or advantages type of area, did you take any kind of wealth, or are we really shoestringing it
Uh,
here?
no, he because like I said, he is a hacker. He's an information broker. He gets a lot of his resources. The flavor text I put through his resources is he creates false credit cards and whatnot.
Sweet.
So
Yeah.
I took a decent amount of resources, and like I said, if you look over here in his disciplines, he's not much of a discipline guy. He's very basic. So almost all of my points went into abilities and backgrounds.
Which is
So
cool.
he's
Yeah.
yeah, he's the resource guy. So
Okay.
he has
Awesome.
he has 3 dots of the resources, so he's got a pretty comfortable lifestyle.
Hmm.
He's got good contacts. He's got some decent allies, and he's actually got a herd. So his hunting is going to be a little bit easier than most people.
That's fine. So basically, what you're doing is now herd. Now, as we go along, there's going to be a lot of little things. I'm not going to go too deep into explaining every detail, but herd is very interesting. Basically, what it means is he has a little group of blood dolls, basically humans who are think he's really cool, and they're willing to share their blood with him. So he doesn't have to risk running into the night and hunting because even though these guys are vampires, Roxbury is a really dangerous place. There's all kind of creepy crawlies walking around the dark, and that's the thing about the world of darkness. It is our world, but all the things that go bump in the night are real, right?
Yeah,
So
and if you, and sorry, if you do look over here, like he's not a physical guy.
no.
He's not the brick. He's not the fighter. So this is the kind of thing he's going to need to survive. So he has to cultivate this kind of thing.
Yeah, and if we come back and look at our haven we have here, this is going to be our base of operations, and our games are all going to see starting out of here. Now, of course, there's many other locales we're going to deal with when we start playing, but this is our haven. Now, it's kind of a cool-looking old building I found here in Roxbury, but it's not the most ritzy thing at all. Right, it almost looks like the Addams Family house. Right, that's why I chose it. I thought it was cool. But there's enough room in here for our small team, which basically there's like 7 vampires living in here, and they each have their own little space. But the basement of this is actually taking up that entire plot. So the basement is a lot bigger, and it's actually quite fancy. And set up really nice by Benny. Benny's a bit of a mystery to you guys. You don't know him very well. Well, we'll have to see how well you know him, actually. But this little place right here will operate just fine. So maybe your character doesn't leave the house much.
Oh no, he doesn't go out unless he absolutely has to. And in fact, like I said, he's almost the stereotypical hacker that you would think. And in fact, one of his flaws is he's got a tick, like a twitch, where he's like his fingers are still hitting the keyboard. You know, he's kind of like
Ah, that's
he's a
nice.
little twitchy like that.
That's cool. All right, now we're going to come back and explain attributes, abilities, and all that stuff. But I don't want to dwell on one person's too long. I want to have everybody take a look at where everybody's going. But if everyone could do me a favor, though, underneath your spot that's reserved for Haven, if your character sheet doesn't have the Haven, then go ahead and just put it under the extras area. But the Haven for your characters, all of you guys are living in the same Haven. Consider it kind of almost like a halfway house in the way it's set up. But the Haven is 175 Humboldt Avenue, Roxbury. This is your Haven. Now, last question before I move on, Bob. How long has your character been in Boston?
I've had my character. He's been here pretty much. This is where he lived before he was turned. So he's been here pretty much his whole life.
Good. That's good.
Um,
Uh,
and like I said, being the kind of guy that he is, doesn't move around a lot.
Awesome. So do me a favor. Go down into the extras area on your sheet. And since you've been here the whole time, well, I need at least one of you guys to be this. Go down in your sheet, and I want you to put down Boston and give yourself 2 dots in it. All right.
Okay.
This is a DM caveat, so don't worry about it. The points on it. All right. Let me move down here. Let me come over to Mox. How you doing, Mox?
Pretty good. Sorry about yourself.
I'm doing well. So, as you can see, Mox, we have ourselves our good little hacker resource gatherer who also has knowledge of the city. So, sweet. That character is, what would you call it? Zach Plague? What Plague? What was it again?
Zero plague.
Zero Plague. So Zero Plague is hacker guy. It's that's a good start. We have the information guy, right? That's pretty handy. He's not going to be too useful in a battle though. Mox, what are you making here for us?
Well, I took up a soldier who is a power seeker in the vampire realm.
Oh, a Diablerist maybe?
Something like that, yes.
Oh, interesting. That
She
could be interesting.
she was a soldier who got turned in the war zone and then fled back to America and has wound up in Boston now.
Oh, okay. So when in what war were you turned?
She was in a conflict in, I believe, either it was in Syria, I believe. Um, yeah, she was born in Chicago in violent inner city. At 18, she joined the military to escape the violence. Went to Aleppo, Syria, into the combat zone. And late one night on patrol, she was embraced by uh, her maker, and he left her that night after uttering the words he would find her when she was ready. Realizing she was a vampire, she left and went on the run, arriving back in Boston only recently. She took a start to a new life as a vampire here, and she seeks to find her place in the vampire world by growing her power and strength by any means.
All right, now is your character a 13th or 14th generation vampire?
I believe we had agreed to go 13.
We did. Now, I could allow you to go. Now, here's an option I'll allow you, Mox, because of your background story. I will allow you to keep all the dots and everything you have set up right now, but I'll also allow you to be a 14th generation vampire. Because what that means is you can actually walk around the sun a little bit.
Okay.
You're not a full-on day walker, but you can handle several hours out in the sun, no problem. These other guys cannot.
Okay.
Yeah, but the reason I say that is because it might be nice to actually have a little bit of a partial day walker in the party, and making your blood is really thin, but yet potent at the same time because you're a highly skilled human that was chosen by a low generation person. So we do have a 14th generation in here, which I think is cool. I'm glad to have that actually. So all right, you're a soldier. Why did you come to Boston? Is it your hometown, or is it what was the reasoning your character decided to go to Boston?
Well, she had considered going back to Chicago, but she left because of the violence, and the East Coast was easier to land in, and for some reason she felt a calling to Boston.
All right, there you go. And to be fair, even though Roxbury, where you kind of got pushed into, is a fairly violent place, it's nothing compared to Chicago. I mean, you know. Chicago is a freaking war zone. But literally, even in the game, it is. You're in Roxbury now. How long have you been here? At least 6 months, minimum 6 months.
Yes, about a year, perhaps two at the most.
Okay. So when you came in here, you were still kind of lost. You didn't know what you were doing and stuff like that, and you're just kind of walking around Boston trying to feed and exist. And a mage comes upon you, and the mage the mage comes up and when you're just feeding, right? And you don't even know what it is, and because you're a completely ignorant character, you got thrown to this without any training whatsoever, right? Because he just made you and left you, or she made you and left you. You're feeding and now, is your character? What's the morality of your character? Did you have any problem just feeding on humans, or were you trying to feed on dogs or rats or things like that?
She really has no opposition to whatever will feed her hunger. It will suffice.
Okay. Now, what is the humanity on this character?
I don't think I said that yet because I was
It's probably
waiting
just
for
sitting
your
at
advice.
the normal 10, right? Okay. Yeah, you're just the normal starting out character. So your character is not you're a soldier, but you're not necessarily murderous, right?
Yeah,
I'm assuming your character was just taking what she needed. She wasn't just killing people left and right. Yeah.
no, it
Um,
wasn't a savage thing. It was a survival.
it was a survival thing. She's not a rabbit Sabat, right?
Yeah.
You're actually very lucky you're in Boston because any place else on the East Coast, Sabat probably would have got you, and that's not a good path. This mage comes upon you, and you don't know it's a mage. This person comes upon you, and they look very disappointed. They're not surprised. This catches your attention because they seem to know what you are. And this person um, he seems to take out a bottle of glue and he just kind of sprinkles the glue at you, right? And all of a sudden you can't move. You don't understand the concept behind it, but somehow this little bottle of glue and the little sprinkling he put on you makes you unable to move, completely paralyzed. He takes you. You go through a bunch of questioning, just like I just did for you, and they find out who you are. They drop you in this house. They don't say much to you at all, actually, and they drop you in this house about a year ago. And Benny and the other guys that are living here is the one that tells you about what's going on in the city and where you are and how you need to live. And Benny actually, even though Benny is an odd fella. He's almost like the Animal House crazy frat boy is what he's kind of like. But Benny was really cool about all the information he gave you and he brought you up to date. Okay.
All right.
So therefore, what I'd like you to do is I'd like to go into your extra area, and I want you to put down Benny and put down two dots, please.
Under allies.
Yeah, yeah. Just put down Benny and put down two dots next to it, or just put two next to it. It's fine.
Okay.
Sweet. All right. So let's go back up to the top of your sheet real quick. Let's take a look here. Um, Now let's see. The character is Mox. Her name is what?
Sienna Barato.
Nice, nice name. All right. And Boston by Night, nice. She's a soldier, excellent. Now, nature. I didn't go over this with Comic Book Bob, but he said he was a hacker, so he told us what it was. But the nature is what are you at your core? What is it that you do? Bob is a hacker. He's a soldier, and now, of course, she's a soldier. And as you see here in her statistics, which we haven't really dealt with this yet, but you see attributes, right? And in these attributes, you have a physical, a social, and a mental. And the way this system goes is you have to choose which is first, second, and third. And the first one gets 7, then 5, then 3. And then, of course, we have points later to build that up. Now, obviously, Mox is a physical based character. So we see a 4 in strength. Wow. Uh, yeah, talk about like literally rolling cars on top of people. Very powerful character. That's super strong, right? We have a dexterity of 3, which is what, like an Olympic level athlete, right? And or not quite, a little bit shy of it, but really athletic and above average stamina as well. You also seem to have a lot of dots in your social. How did that work out?
Well, I didn't want the character to be completely inept at dealing with others,
Hmm.
so I put two of my 5 dots into the charisma. The manipulation, I went for three, because being able to manipulate humans, other vampires, even if it came to physical manipulation, if that would work in any way, um, that would help with intimidation. The appearance, since she is female, and I figured she would need to be more attractive than usual, just to help her with any type of charisma rolls or anything for appearance basis.
Hmm. Well, it's probably why Benny was
The
extra nice to you as well. That probably helped out, right? But you did dump a bunch of experience points into the social actually, which is an interesting choice. There's nothing wrong with it, but it is an interesting choice because when we come back to his down to his disciplines, he's got potency, fortitude, and celerity, which is pretty much strength, stamina, and speedy dexterity. So he's pumped up his physicals even more. So with that potence, which is strength, with a one in potence, a four in strength, this is a powerful dude right here. You don't want to get punched by this lady. And then you chose a background. What is this background? We have 5 dots in that. Wow, that's a lot. Wow, what is it?
well, I took domain, which is basically the area that a vampire inhabits or hunts in. And I since I only went with that is the only one, I put all five into that.
Hmm. Because of your background, though, because we've only been here about a year, and we've gone through how you've gotten here. I wouldn't choose domain. I would go and choose another one, or a couple other ones. I don't think domain really makes sense for your character. You know what I mean?
Okay, would generation be a better option?
Now generation, Denali, you got your mic on, Denali?
Yeah,
Yeah. Help me out, Denali. Generation, that's what allows you to be lower generations, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Oh,
And we already
my
made you
bad.
a
Yeah,
14 generation, but your character,
Yeah.
something
So,
weird is going on with your character because you're way more powerful than a 14th generation should be. But I got something in my head that popped in I'm going to work with. But let's try to
mhm,
explain that a little bit in background. Let's help him out, Denali. What do you think would be a good background or backgrounds for this character?
let's see.
Do you think maybe she should have heard or influence or something?
or maybe yeah, maybe resources instead of domain.
Possibly,
I
but
just
once again, that
have a
doesn't
hard.
seem to make sense for the character, right? This is a brand
Yeah,
new vampire, right? A brand new vampire.
Well,
Alternate identity.
I would say context. Like what I think you said that you came Boston for a reason.
Mm,
Um, and I wouldn't put 5 dots in context. I would just put like 1 dot in context. That'd be like a person that you know is a buddy or a former ally of yours saying, "Hey, come over here," Boston, if you need a place and all that stuff, kind of deal.
hmm.
yeah, like maybe like an old war buddy or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Um, Possibly alternate identity, and herd might be good options as well.
Well,
Well, herd
let's take a
is
look.
always good just so you can feed easily, right? But
It could be.
what about
Yeah.
fame? She was in the war zone. Did she get a medal? Is she known at all?
No, no, she was just a basic soldier that had pretty much only been in the combat zone 6 months.
All right, there we go.
Oh,
All right, this is what we're going to do then. Give yourself one in what was the one Denali suggested? What was that? Contacts, right? Definitely
Context, yeah.
put one in that. I think that's a good idea. Also, I want you to put two in mentor. We'll deal with that later. But put two in mentor.
Okay.
We'll take that story you created and to deal with that. Let's give you. You've been here about a year, and because of the mages being the magi being a serious threat, you didn't know this in the beginning, but you've come to understand the past year. You don't want to screw up around them. They allow you to hunt in Roxbury, but it's even safer just to have something. So you can choose, but I would say take a dot and herd, simply because that gives you three people that you can feed off of when you need to. All right, and then it
Yeah,
gives us
maybe some people you know from like the local VA or something.
right, exactly, right, and then you might as well throw one into resources as well.
Okay.
I mean, you do have some money. You have access to some cash. You're not an absolutely pauper. You're not an absolute pauper, right?
Okay.
Awesome. I think that works really well. All right, so we got that worked out. I think everything else looks really good. I like the look of the talents. This is our frontline fighter for sure. Now, when you were making the character here, of course, you're very physical. So, can you go back up to your abilities, please? Let me see here. Okay, so you took two in firearms and three in melee. Okay, okay. And you took four in brawl. Whew, wow. All right. So you're a hand-to-hand. You're a thug. I see.
Hmm.
All right. Did you decide that you wanted to take any kind of handheld weapon?
I didn't know if you would allow that, and the only thing that was conventional that made sense would have been a pistol.
Well, okay, you most certainly would have a pistol. You have that. You can write that down. You can choose whatever one you want. I would assume it would be a semi-automatic type of Magnum type pistol rather than a revolver. But you can choose whatever you want. You certainly have a pistol. Of course, you guys are vampires. You're not getting any special service from the Magi at all. But this city is run by the Magi. You got to be a little bit careful, but carrying a gun is not necessarily the worst crime in the world here. All right. You want to take any kind of like metal pipe or cane or anything like that you have, and this isn't necessarily something you walk around with day to day, or maybe it is.
How about a combat knife?
Mm,
Combat knife, maybe, yeah,
yeah.
something like that. Just flesh that out a little bit. Awesome. All right, let me move over here. I'm going to come to you last, Natalie. So just help me out as we go along here. All right. Let's move
Sure.
over to Dodge. Hey Dodge, why don't you've been hearing how we're starting to put our world together here. So why don't you tell me what is your character in it?
All right, so here's my character sheet.
We can't see your character
My
sheet. It was
character
there, but oh, there it is. All right, there we go.
is it
So
there now?
if you can
All
blow
right.
that up some more, blow it up quite a bit, please, so we can see it.
I don't know if I can or not
I think you
actually.
can. Just go into the control bar for the tab and just right there, right down the bottom, right here on the lower left hand side. There's plus and minus. Hit plus a lot. Just keep clicking it. There you go. More and
Is
more and
that
more.
better?
More and more and more.
More?
Yeah, more. Just keep hitting it. Yeah, till it stops. All
All
right.
right. Well,
There we go.
that's
There we
what
go.
I'm gonna get.
Yeah,
All right.
that's fine.
So I have his name. His name's Damien.
Okay.
Okay. So he's from New Orleans. He was a con man and a drug dealer. He got turned in the '80s. Turned. He was actually selling weed and cocaine. Moved to selling vampire blood because, well, that gets people high, and he has vampire blood now. So he kind of stepped on some toes. I did choose hunted as
A flaw.
as as a flaw. So I did step on some toes, and I got kicked out of New Orleans. I've been in Boston for about 6 months. I'm just kind of feeling my way through it at this point.
That's fine. That's fine. Now, do me a favor though. Underneath your extra, because you and I talked about this before, but the whole drug dealer thing, which I'm going to get into the various things that are happening in the city a little bit later. But underneath your drug dealing or blood drug dealing thing, I want you to write down that you have because you've been doing this since the 80s, so you've learned along the way, right? And you know that you found a certain way to dilute your blood so that you don't have this problem of the ghoul keep popping up because that's troublesome. And you
Okay.
learn this a long time. So you have a special concoction of chemicals and herbs or whatever that you dilute, you cut your blood with. So it gives this really nice high to the person who's purchasing it, but you don't have to deal with the ghoul. But it still does have the effect, as vampire blood will, in kind of boosting their strength and dexterity and vision and stuff for a short period of time. So it is still a vampire blood drug, but you have found how to prepare it just right. You know what I mean? So make sure you note that, so we don't have to deal with the ghoul trouble. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. And what I was wondering is, did I set up the merits correctly? Because I took one and hunted.
Hmm.
I didn't want it to be too bad.
I think that's
Um,
fine.
and then I spent some extra XP in the merits here. And sorry about the kids. My
That's a no
apologies.
problem, dude. No problem.
I went
Yeah.
with lucky, 3 planned friendship, 3 common sense, 1 blush of health, and eat food also at 1.
Okay, so you
Match
can't
up.
walk in the dare you can't walk around the daylight, but you don't look like a vampire because most vampires are kind of gaunt and pale, right? It's a vampire. And since we're on this point, let me take a quick moment to give a little bit more detail on something that that I homebrew in Vampire. Now, in Vampire the Masquerade, when they explain the anatomy of a vampire, they simply just say that everything kind of shrivels, and when you drink blood, it's some kind of somehow by osmosis just flows through the body. So if you cut a vampire, it doesn't bleed, etc., etc., etc. I never liked that. I never liked that. But there is a really cool anatomy in a book for Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, it's a source book for vampires in Dungeons and Dragons. And in there, what happens is you have this massive, this like a new organ. In a way, starts growing inside your abdomen. It's like this massive black tangles and vines that grow inside the chest cavity, and it starts with the heart, actually. And the older you get, the thicker this mass becomes. I like that a lot better, and that's what I use in my vampire game. So, you guys are not just some withered organ thing that's unexplainable undead. This organ, this new organ that grows as part of the virus, it's like just basically started from the heart, and the heart starts taking sending vines out the abdomen. This is how I run it. So it's a minor point, but I'm a stickler for those kind of things, and I like it a lot better. Um,
Well, no, I wanted to ask you also. Okay, so I chose 2 on contacts.
yeah,
So I chose another drug dealer within the local area.
hmm,
I just named him Tim Morris, whatever.
that's fine.
And then a Boston Police Department. Maybe he's a detective. Maybe he's somebody I grew up with. We'll flush that out. But those are the 2 contacts. Is that going to work with the story, or do you want
Sure,
me to change that?
no problem whatsoever. And actually, that drug dealer might let us into one of the 3 storylines that I have available. So that's actually very helpful. Thank you. Now, I don't know why you keep jumping back from not being able to see your thing or not, but I don't know what's going on with that. But go all the way back up the top, please. I need to see the top of the character sheet, please.
Yeah, he keeps using the same window. It's us having a separate window for the sheets. So every time he tries to unmute himself, the
Uh,
thing goes away.
that's what he's doing. I see. Okay, thank you.
Hmm.
All right, all the way to the top, please. All the way to the top. All right, let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. All right, so with 13th generation, sire unknown, awesome. So that therefore he's a caitiff. He's a con man, drug dealer, which is kind of cool. And his nature and demeanor. Now, nature and demeanor, I think, are a very cool little aspect they added to the game, and I've always added them or homebrewed them into most games I do in some way or another. But because in D&D, for instance, we have alignment, which is fine. You can play your chaotic good character. We get it, and you can play within those bounds. But nature and demeanor is far more specific and far cooler, I think, because nature is what you really are, and demeanor is what you show the world, right? And this works out really neat, really cool. So basically, Damien here at heart is a rebel. He doesn't like to follow rules. He doesn't like orders, etc., etc. But he shows the world that he's this kind of roguish, quite charismatic character. And therefore, let's take a look at these attributes you have going on here. Physically, you're an average human. There's nothing special here, but you're not weak. You're just an average human in those abilities. Your mentals are fine. You're better on your feet than you are in book learning. Makes sense over here with the wits. But boy, look at those social pips. You are very, very much a face man. Dodge.
Yeah, no, I had to unmute myself. My apologies. The kids. So yeah, no, and that's what we talked about. The party needed the talker, so that's where I am throwing everything here. And I saw what all needs is charisma and performance. Abilities. Well, I threw a lot at performance here. So
Yeah,
I'm trying to
I see
really
that.
play the talking character here.
I see that. And you really moved your skills around where Mox put everything very heavily up into a lot of it into the attributes, actually, which is fine. But we see that you get a little bit of fighting ability, not so much. You can use a gun, so that's good. But come down, let's see your disciplines. What did you choose here? Let's bring it down a little bit.
I
Yeah.
went with presence, celerity, and obfuscate.
Okay, so you're a little bit quick. You can hide yourself in plain sight in a way, sticking to the shadows and such like that. But presence, wow, with that, with those social skills and presence, which basically means with three dots in presence, he can glamour people, right? Which means, particularly humans, right? So he has the ability to control humans. He's a crowd controller in a way. So that's handy. That's good. We need that. We need that. All right, so you've been here for 6 months, which is the shortest of anybody so far. And as far as your contacts you've made in that time, we'll deal with that later. But is there anything you'd like to add to what your character's thinking inside this environment?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking he's more like, and he also has a lot of willpower. I did take one away from that though to throw up here towards my obfuscate. But I think he blew into town mainly because of the contacts he has. He got kicked out of New Orleans. He had nowhere really to go.
Hmm.
A little bit of money behind me, obviously drug dealer, but it's all liquid assets. There's no real place to land,
Hmm.
and so I think that's what would bring him to the house, right?
Well, now let's talk about that for a minute. Your character is a rebel at heart, which is cool. It makes sense. But you are coming into a city that is not held when you came in at the time. There's no prince here. This is a mage controlled city. So you came here for contacts, and you, of course, the normal procedure, by the way, guys, when you go into a new city, you have to present yourself to the prince. If you don't, you will get hunted and murdered. So this is a standard rule within the traditions of the masquerade. Everybody knows it, except for the cative. But we've already explained why Bob is here. He grew up here. We explained why Mox is here. All right, so we know exactly why they're in the city. We need to understand why you would be here, though, because you actually, in a way, had a clan. You just never really got into the all the mysticism of the clan, and therefore didn't follow their particular order. And a matter of fact, you say you don't know who your sire is. Is that true? Because maybe you started
Oh,
life as something else. Maybe you started as a toreador. You just never went through the training because you get yourself in trouble like immediately.
oh, like maybe I messed up and I lifted the masquerade and they kicked me out. We can play with that
Yeah,
idea. I
I
like
think I like that. I think you should know who your sire is, and maybe you don't have contact with the sire, but I'm really feeling your character was turned by a toreador, who saw because you're a pretty boy, right? And you fit perfectly. I mean, just because you're a drug dealer doesn't mean you don't dress well, and obviously you're really good at interacting with people. I think a toreador probably chose you, but you couldn't kick your bad habits, and you got yourself in trouble because of your rebel nature, right? So I would put down, choose a name for a sire. I don't care what it is, and just put down that sire's a toreador. Okay. Now, you're still fine of you being a caitiff because you never really went through the training. right? So you've kind of along the way you've learned who you are, and more than likely because your character is a little bit older, so your character is probably around 50 or so, right? 50 around 50 years old or 60 years old. So along the way, you've probably been to many cities. Okay, so do me a favor and come down into your extra area, your background area, or wherever. Type here is fine, and go ahead and write down for me, traveler. Just put in extras area. I would even put it under background, to be honest with you. I think background's just fine. Yeah, it's background's up higher, dude. Okay, you can put it here too. That's fine. And no, I would put it under. I really think you should put it under background. Actually, yeah. This is a. I'm giving each of you guys a little storyteller caveat here, and but this one goes under background. So put it underneath background, which is on the first page. It's up on the first page, dude. All the way up top. Okay, a little bit. Yeah, it's on the very first page. You all right, dude? It's literally on page one. There you go. Come down to backgrounds, which is just toward the bottom of this page. All right, there you go. And put down Traveler 2. It's not in there. You're going to have to type it in yourself. There you go. All right, and just put 2. Awesome. All right. So I think we got a good idea of what your character is, and you've been traveling around for quite a bit, and you came to Boston for a particular reason, even though it's not necessarily the best choice. You're here for a reason, so you need to take some time and think about that. Why are you here? There must be a reason for your character more so than the other guys. So think about that a little bit, Dodge. And I'm going to jump over to Denali. Okay, Denali, how you doing, dude?
All right, I'm doing good.
All right. So let me come over here and share with you. Now, Dinale here is the one who pushed really hard to have this game played. Denali is a big fan of Vampire, as am I. And I was very happy to accommodate him. Denali, you've been listening here along the way and seeing what we got. We got Bob. Bob's character, Zero Plague, is a hacker, born in
Mm-hmm.
Boston, been here the whole time, got turned, not exactly, doesn't really know who his sire is. Bob, you don't know who your sire is, right?
No, he literally woke up, just left out in
Okay,
uh,
perfect.
in,
Because this
in, in
is
an alley somewhere.
no, because this is tying into one of the scenario ideas that I have. I'm going to deal with later. So do me a favor, underneath sire, can you please type in the caitiff maker?
Okay.
All right, thank you. So Denali, so we have Bob, who's a resident here of the city. He's been here for decades and decades, and in the Haven. Now we
Mm-hmm.
have, of course, we have Mox as well, which you heard the story of his character. She's a soldier. She's only been here a short time, about a year, but we understand her. And of course, Dodge is a new mysterious arrival that's been in the house for only about 6 months. Now, let's talk about your character. How is your character? First of all, what is the? I see you have a nature of survivor, but how does your character play in here? We got a hacker, we got the frontline fighter, and we have the face man. So what is your character doing?
My character, from outward appearance, is the drug cooker. He makes the drugs.
He makes the drugs. Okay, so now what kind of drugs is he making? Hold on a second.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. What kind of drugs is he making?
Well, he makes all the because of his background before he can make any drugs because he would experiment and just give them, contact high and feel goods and mood and mind altering
Okay,
drugs.
and I understand what you're doing with that character aspect. So
Mhm.
therefore, how long has your character been in Boston?
Um, he's been there for 35 years.
Okay, you've been there for a long time. Was your
Hmm.
character born in Boston?
No, he originally came from another state a nearby state to study at Boston University. Uh, but because of situation that occurred in Boston, he was kicked out um, just on his third year of his as a biochemist. And since he was on the scholarship, he couldn't go back, so he kind of fell with the rough crowds of Boston
Okay,
and started becoming a cook.
I see, and then got turned. So
Hmm.
is your character have any idea who their sire is, or are you another victim of the cative maker?
Um, he's a victim of the Kingdom Maker
Okay.
um,
All right, cool.
at
Just
that
write that
time.
down
Yeah,
underneath sire, the cative maker. And do me a favor and bump up the. I'd rather have you have been in Boston for. Actually, I'd rather have you have been in here. You've been here for. Let me see, 50 years, please.
50 years.
Yes,
Okay,
not
so
35.
all
So,
right.
other than when you came into, because you got turned in the city, you kind of learned how the city worked and what all the things that were going on. You got sent into the house, and when you got there, there were other vampires that have come and gone, of course, over time. Because a lot you've noticed that over time, a lot of vampires don't stay in Boston very long. Even though the
Hmm.
cative maker is consistently making them, and then the Magi very much want to catch whoever this person is. But you've seen them come and go. But the only person who has been here longer than you is Benny, and Benny has been in that in charge of the house. He was there when you got there, right? Benny is very close. You've known Benny for 50 years, but he's very close-lipped. You don't know how he ended up getting there. You don't know how long he's been there. Benny is he's kind of a he likes being a mystery, and he just kind of chuckles and doesn't say. Now, with your particular studies that we know, I'm not going to get into so too deeply, but there is something a little secretive that Denali's character is doing here. With
Hmm.
your studies, you understand because you are looking at the nature of what it is to be a vampire. You understand that Benny's an oddball. He's a Bruja, but there's something else going on with Benny. You're not exactly sure what it is. You haven't been able to figure that out. And of course, you have to be so stealthful in your research. It's kind of hard to get directly to the point. But something's weird about Benny. You know this. Now, whether you share that or not is another matter. But Okay, so we got Dinale set up. He's selling drugs and stuff like that, probably more mundane stuff. So maybe you and Dodge, maybe you guys get along because Dodge has created his own concoction of vampire blood, and he sells it as a drug as well. Now, of course, living in Roxbury is perfect because this place is absolutely drug-addled area of Boston. I mean, there's huge troubles. They've had mammoth opioid troubles. They've had mammoth crystal meth, cocaine. I mean, all kind of stuff. This area is stricken by drugs, so it makes sense that we'd have a couple of drug dealers in the group. Actually, perfectly for
Well,
Roxbury.
no, and here's a question.
Yeah,
Instead of that drug dealer contact, should I write him down as my contact?
no.
Like he's the reason I'm in Boston, right?
Oh well. What do you think, Denali?
Yeah, I mean, I could do so, but he doesn't really need to add me as a contact because our character would know each other. So that
Well, he
didn't need
could
to.
add a contact. He could put another
Yeah,
contact in and make it you. So
yeah.
yeah, maybe Denali's character, which is Al Morgan. Maybe
Hmm.
Al was traveling around to different cities, trying to do in his research, which he's been doing a long time. Because Denali is the oldest one here, I think, so far. But he's been in his travels. You guys ran into each other in a city, and you had very similar. Ideas about the world, and you guys kind of become friends. So therefore, Dodge has come to Boston to meet with you. So why is that, Dodge? Why are you meeting with him? So Denali, maybe he's helping you with what you're trying to do.
Right. So with the whole blood diluting thing, that's just another experiment
It is. It
of
is.
mine. Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you explain to Dodge what it is your character's trying to do, and then let's tie him into what you're trying to do. He's a confidant and an ally in this endeavor. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. All right. So what I'm trying to do is trying to understand the property of the blood, really research what the potentials can be to move forward to kind of evolve the blood, and break the limits of what the blood can do. So what the mood altering blood, diluting the blood where it doesn't make things bondable, are just experiments to that endeavor. Hopefully, one day, um, my character would be able to break through the generation thing, meaning that generation won't matter because it would be concentrated, where it would be like a new vampire renew, not diluted, always concentrated.
So
Oh,
basically, to make that simplified for everybody listening, what Dinale is
Mm-hmm.
trying to do is create a vampire super soldier syndrome. Excuse me, super soldier serum is what he's trying to create in a way. Just to keep it very simple. So what do you think about that, Dodge? You kind of come over to help him with that research.
well, that's what I was just thinking. Is yeah, because my character, he was a drug dealer. He's been cutting the blood pretty much. That way, I don't create ghouls, which is actually a step forward in that process you're talking about. And maybe we met each other in New Orleans, on Bourbon Street one night. We
Mm-hmm.
ran into each other at a bar, and we struck it off. So I get ran out of town. I head up to see you.
All right.
Well, now hold on a second. There, the span because you've only been here a year, though, Dodge. So if that's the case, if you want to move it back to when you ran away, maybe you should say that you've been in Boston for 30 years instead of one.
Does your character travel around though?
He does.
Because we did get
That's why
my
I
Mm-hmm.
added
character
that.
traveler.
Yeah,
So
that's why I add that. I think it makes sense that you're in here a year. We could say you guys only met like a year and a half, 2 years ago in his travels, because Denali does travel around trying to find information and research. So maybe you guys met in Atlanta or New York or what have you. And of course, you didn't meet in
yeah,
Atlanta because you'd be dead. But maybe New York or maybe some, Wisconsin or something like that. I think that would fit to your character, and it would fit to what Denali is doing as well.
I agree. I think that works perfectly.
Awesome. Awesome. Janelle, if you could do me a favor on your sheet, somewhere
Mm-hmm.
in there, this is just a really just an information thing, so it doesn't need to go in the background or anything like that. Just as a piece of information, when Mox came into the city and the Magi were locating Mox, relocating Mox into one of the Roxbury, because there's four Roxbury havens. You guys are in one. You're in kind of what is
Mm-hmm.
considered the main haven, really.
All right.
Actually, they originally were going to put her in another one, but you noticed something interesting about her. And therefore, you asked permission to have her put in your haven, and they granted it. Okay, so you're the reason why Mox is in this haven. You want to keep an eye on her because there's something interesting about her, and you need to check it out. And therefore, all what I want to do is you come down to contacts, please, Danelli. Other than
Okay.
this, in your contacts, please.
The expanded contacts.
Yeah.
Okay. Move
Oh,
down.
there we
Okay.
go. Okay, down here, expanded contacts. Well, actually, go. Do you have room in the normal contact area? No, I see. No, no, don't go down and expand it. It's fine. We'll put it there. Put down.
Yep. Keep saying put down.
Write down the Coven of Salem. Okay, and put down two. Plus two. Okay. You actually have been here the longest, and
Mm-hmm.
once again, Benny is a bit of a mystery. You're not obviously he has some kind of connection to the Magi, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't really see how much because he he never interacts with them. But you have though, and this is a dangerous game that you've been playing because you are messing around with things that they don't like other people messing around with, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
playing a very dangerous game, but that's how you play the game. right? So you actually do have contact with the Magi. Now, I'm not saying that your character's friendly with them or likes them or is allied with them. You just do have contact with them, and over the 5 decades that you've been here, you have a little bit of influence with them. They do trust you, kinda, as much as they would
Okay.
trust a vampire. They trust you. Right now, I'm not, and understand the reason I put in context and not allies is because I'm not locking you down. You are not obliged to the Magi, but
Okay.
you have sown and created influence with them over the time because it's the smart thing to do, right?
Right.
Okay, all right,
Hmm.
and just to explain the Coven of Salem. The Magi, of course, are the witches and all the purging that was going on. Of course, back in the Inquisition, they weren't just killing vampires; they were killing all the creatures of the world of darkness, right? And the witches were
Right.
the Magi were no exception. Now, these guys, Denali, this place is controlled completely by the Order of Hermes. There's
Hmm.
very few others, a few mages around that or hedge witches is what they call themselves, around, and they are allowed to operate. But mainly, the Order of Hermes controls this city completely. But they call themselves, particularly the Coven of Salem, and it's basically in memory of their members who were lost to the humans back in the old Salem burning times. That's why they call themselves that. All right, so we got our characters laid out very well. We have a hacker, we have a frontline soldier, we have two drug dealers actually. One who's very charismatic, the other one who's very smart. So we have everything we need. This is a very balanced party. So that is awesome. So therefore, I'm going to lay down exactly what's happening in this city. So you guys can think about it, make some decisions. But before I do that, does anybody have anything to say?
Yeah,
I do have.
the cult here for Al Morgan 4. Wow, you like I could see how he would be close with the mages, right?
Well, yeah, but he's also playing an extremely dangerous game. If you come down to his disciplines, go down to your disciplines, Denali. Okay, he is a thaumaturgist, right? This dude is a wizard. He's a wizard vampire, right? Magi hate that, and if they learn that he's a a magic using vampire, they will kill him on the spot, no matter what. Right now, he'll have to flesh out a couple of these contexts. He has contact with the Coven of Salem itself, but he probably also has one or two people he's made friends, whether he's actually friends with them or he's simply cultivated that. But he's going to have to detail that out a little bit for me. But I know Dinale would take care of it. But he's playing a very dangerous game, actually. It's like the worst city in the world for him to be doing this, except for maybe in Constantinople. That would be another issue. Uh, but yeah, so it's interesting what his character's doing. He's walking that thin line tight. Mock, you had something
Yeah,
to say?
that's what I was saying. And I think his character and mine, we might get each other in trouble. This might not be good.
That's wonderful. I love it. That's perfect. That's exactly what I want. Mox, what's up, dude?
Yes. Um, I was noticing on my character sheet
Uh
that
huh.
I had more than 7 on the physical in my attributes, but I wondered because I also took the flaw of permanent fangs. It gives a bonus of 3. Is that 3 dots that I can use for something
Um,
No,
that I could have put in?
that's 3 points.
mhm. And we're
Okay.
gonna have Denelli take a
Hmm.
closer look at your sheet. I'm not sure he spent his points properly actually.
All right.
Well,
But
I
we'll
had
we'll do.
used.
Hey, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I hadn't used the 15 extra or 10 extra points you had given. The 15 free points that we could use. That they could be also converted for that strength as well. Correct.
They can be
Correct.
converted, but they are converted. They're not 1 to 1.
Yeah, they're 5 to 1.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not. When I was looking at your sheet, I thought it was. I don't think it was calculated exactly right. We'll have Denali take a look at that, and he'll go through and min max it and make sure it's exactly right. Maybe it is right. I'm not. But we'll just have Denali check that and just to make sure. Don't worry
Hmm.
about it right now, though. It's fine. Let's see here. Now, in this haven, Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody else have any questions before I move on? Bob?
Well, I was just wondering for a second, if my character sheet looked like I had it balanced because me and Denali went through it last night, and I
Oh,
thought I spent it correctly. So,
yours look good. Yours looks good. Denali's looks good. Bob's looks good.
Oh,
Mox's just came off to me as something seems a little off. It might not be. It might be he just really loaded up the attributes and it's just striking my eyes as weird. But we'll make sure. We'll
right.
check it. It's no big deal. It's really not a big deal. And honestly, having a character who is capable, since none of you guys are really good at front line fighting, have an extra. And we've already made a decision that Mox's character is weird. It's a 14th
Mm-hmm.
generation vampire, but it's strong. So something's weird going on with Mox's character anyway.
Right.
So if we do have a weird amount of points, I don't really care. I think it's fine.
Right.
Um,
So I guess just I guess for mine would probably be just two questions,
mhm.
which would be from background. I did pick up the nightclub perk for 2 dots
Mhm.
for my 5, which means I have a nightclub basically that makes about 1,000 a month. So that's will the Magi allow that? It's just
Well, you
a
have some influence with them, don't you? So
yeah.
let's say you have a small nightclub in Back Bay.
Okay.
Now, that's
So
not normally a place where they would, because you can move around the city, right? When I say you
right,
guys are restricted to Roxbury, I mean it simply means you're hunting, and they want you to live there too. They just so they can keep you in one area, but that doesn't mean you can't go
right,
other places. It's not like if you step
all right.
outside Roxbury, they're going to murder you. That's not the case. But you have a, nightclub, small nightclub in Back Bay, and that is, of course, right in the middle of all the colleges and universities and stuff like that. It's
Mhm.
quite opulent. So there you go. Sweet.
Okay.
Yeah.
does
And then
character allow me to sell my wares at that club? That might be something I need to write down.
Well,
um
that's a good point. We'll have to let him make that decision. I do know that
mhm,
in Benny's speakeasy, which is sitting in the absolutely enormous basement of this building. Keep in mind, the basement is much bigger than the building itself, right? If we
all
come
right.
back over here and we look at what I have here, the basement is that entire plot. Right, and it's actually almost 2 levels, right? And that's the interesting thing about Boston. It doesn't have the amazing sewer system and underground that New York has. But Boston has like everybody's got a basement, and this one is actually almost a two-story basement. It's basically really deep, so it has a balcony area. So there's actually a fairly large club here. And this club is run by Benny, but it has all the vampires in Roxbury come and hang out here, and of course all the little blood dolls and hangers on and fangirls fanboys are in here. So I would assume, Dodge, that a lot of your blood selling is probably coming out of here, actually more so than his. But if Dinale wants to allow it, he can. I mean, it's his place. So.
Right. That's something we would have to be talking about because we have to be mindful of what drugs you're selling, not the blood ones, especially not the blood ones.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll do that in game. I
Yeah.
gotcha.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
on any day of the week, Benny's Tavern here is pretty full. Now, that doesn't mean you guys have to hang out there or not, but it is what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in the basement of this place pretty regular. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just to keep in mind, other than you four and Benny, who are living in this haven, there's one other person living in this haven, and that is Delilah. Now, Delilah is very, very new. She's only been here about a month. You guys had a very small extra room, actually, but all the other havens are completely full. So there was no room for her. Therefore, she's in a very small little room. Actually, it was a storage area that Benny was using, and he cleaned it out.
Right.
Delilah is also here. She's only been here about a month, maybe even a little less. You don't know much about her, but she is the sixth vampire in this building that lives here.
And Chester, you said we all get Benny as an ally, 1 or 2.
You don't get him as an ally. You get him as contact. Well, just kind of consider it automatic. He's like an automatic contact. He comes with a haven. He's don't worry about it. He's in the haven.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Benny is a weird one. So
Mhm.
now, Bob, you got anything to say before I move on?
No, you actually answered the question I had, which was about the freedom to travel around the city and whatnot. So it's basically they're just saying you can move around the city as long as you don't do anything stupid,
Mhm.
and you're restricted feeding and living in this area.
Yes. And understand that the Magi, they don't really care about you at all. They're busy doing their stuff, right? They just know from experience that vampires need to be you need to keep an eye on them, right? And
Right.
but beyond that, they don't really care. If you don't draw their attention to them, they won't. They're not going to interact with you. It's not like they send police thugs to rough you up every now and then. They don't do that. They don't interact with you at all. Right? Matter of fact,
Okay.
the only interaction you probably have with them was Benny,
Okay. And
right?
as far as the Camarilla is concerned, there isn't really much of a presence here right now, right?
There is no presence here, right?
Okay.
Um,
All
uh,
right.
well, no, there is a presence.
So all the vampires. I mean, as I say, so would that mean that all the vampires that are currently in the city, they're not really affiliated with the Camarilla so much as just they just kind of police themselves?
Okay, well, let me cover that. But one of the pop plot points I'm about to get into, there is beginning to be vampire presence in the city, but let me wait till I get into that. But of all the vampires that are in the city, and let's say there's only about 20 so, right? There's 20 to 30 vampires that live in this city. It's a very small population, and the Magi are happy with that. Now, you guys have a few things that you understand. One, do not go to the west side of the city. Now, you're not, the Magi are not restricting you, but the werewolves control that area. The Bone Gnors, which are urban werewolves, they will kill you happily. They will toy with your body until they decide to end you. You know this. You do not mess with the werewolves unless you're going in full the bear to kill them, right? So we don't go to the west side of the city. You don't go to Orange at all because the werewolves will tear you apart, right? But
Okay.
the interesting thing is that the werewolves do not travel beyond the park. I mean, literally, they do not travel beyond the park, the Westwood Park over in Orange. So they're not a threat where you are at all. You don't know why. You don't know the relationship they have with the Magi. You know nothing about it. Nothing at all. Even Denali, who has been here longer than everybody but Benny, he has no clue what the deal with the werewolves are either. But you know this. You also know that even though the sewer system is nowhere near as extensive as some of the bigger cities, you don't go into the sewers. You don't do it because there's a lot of rumors that Nosferatu lived down there. Ooh, right? But worse, much worse than a Nosferatu, Sabat. Now, this city is actually clear of Sabat, and you guys know that if you travel to any other city, even just a little bit south down to Providence, right, which isn't very far, that city is controlled by Sabat. You go a little bit north, it's controlled by Sabat. Everywhere you go on the East Coast is controlled by Sabat, or there's a prince of a Camarilla prince who is fighting the Sabat on a day-to-day basis, right? The Sabat are a major issue on the East Coast, right? But here in Boston, they have zero presence. But there are rumors that they are in the sewers. So the sewers are a terrifying place for you guys. It's at least this is what has been told to you. But of those 20 to 30 vampires that live in these four havens that are all here in Roxbury, most of them are a good chunk of them. I'd say 30 to 40% of them are creations of the caitiff maker. No one knows who it is. No one knows why it's doing it, but someone has been making caitiff in the city for decades, right? Dinale is his character is made by the caitiff maker, and the other groups are people like you, Dodge. They've made mistakes, got kicked out, got into trouble. It's like a collection of misfits here in Boston, really. There have been a couple people you guys know in the past that have come, and either you suspect that they are agents of the Camarilla, trying to keep an eye on what's going on in Boston, or they're instigators. You know that one of the people that runs around. Let's see, let me give him a name. Let's call him Tiberius. That's a good name. There's one vampire called Tiberius. He's a gangrel, by the way. Okay, and
Pluvius
Tiberius.
Octavius.
Yes, I can't. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. He is a
I
gangrel.
know.
and he is a member of the Anarchs. And the Anarchs, they stand against the Camarilla because they're young vampires and they think the Camarilla is lying to them and not being honest with them and trying to manipulate them. And they're just kind of the typical punk, the 80s punk type of young rebel rousers. So you know that at least Tiberius is an Anarch. And his purposes here, you're not sure because most of the time Tiberius just gets way too drunk. That's mainly what he does. But you see him all the
Well,
time.
my question was,
Hmm.
okay, so my character, he has three, in clan friendship.
Hmm.
We were talking last night a little bit. Which clan should he be close to?
Good question. I mean, it doesn't matter to me, but for you, maybe it will tie into your character a little bit. Maybe you have this would be bold, but maybe the clan friendship is with the Tremere.
Even though I got kind of ousted, they like I
No,
still
no,
have
not
friends in
not the
there.
Troubadour. Not, I mean, not excuse me, not the Toreador.
Oh no.
The Tremere,
Oh, okay.
the magic using vampires that the Magi hate.
And are always looking for someone to use as a resource.
Well, here's the thing, though. Maybe what the reason why you and Denali were hooked up together, because I'm talking to Dodge, right? This is Dodge that's saying that, right? Yes?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So maybe, Dodge, the reason why you and Denali were hooked up is because Denali has at least a superficial connection to the Tremere, because, I mean, he is using thaumaturgy and stuff, so I'm sure he's made friends and contacts with the Tremere over the years. They might not be worthy of dots, but he certainly has contacts. So maybe you, over time, have made good friends with the Tremere because you're very interested in what they're doing, and they're the ones that put you two in contact with each other. I'm just saying, it's a suggestion.
Yeah. No, I like that idea. Story wise, that really works. I think we'll run with that. I like that idea.
Okay, and you've never actually picked up any of their magic use and stuff like that because that's not what you are. But you're very interested in that kind of things because you were when you first started selling your blood, when you learned that the blood could be a drug, you were running in all kind of trouble because you kept making ghouls, and that's a very troublesome thing. And maybe even a Tremere came over to you and said, "Whoa, what are you doing?" Right? And from there, you made a contact, and they maybe instead of Denali helped you to make your to refine your blood drug down to perfection. Maybe it was a Tremere that helped you do that.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they threw you two together because you have some knowledge and understanding and abilities that could be useful to him, and maybe secretly the Tremere are very interested in what Denali is doing, and they're keeping an eye on him, whether he knows it or not.
What clan is the prince that's trying to rise? You said it was mage controlled, but there is a prince trying
Yeah,
to
yeah.
rise.
I haven't
So
got to that yet. I'm just trying to make sure I've covered everything up before I jump into that, because that's going to be the last thing we do before we get out of here today. Any other question, guys?
Not so far.
All right, sweet. All right, so here we go. Now the last thing, so we got our characters laid out. We got a good solid team. That's an A team right there, and I do mean that literally because we have a BA and we have a face man, we have a Murdoch, I think, kind of, and of course we have the boss. You get a cigar, Denelli? He's gonna need one.
I
But
always do.
there you go. But here's the situation. We know how they got to Boston. We know how long they've been here. But Boston is a city of upheaval currently. There are three main storylines that are going on in the city. Now, understand this is a storytelling game. So when we come together and start role playing this next week, we are going to be making this world as we go along. Okay, and this game, more than maybe any other game, the players have a big part in how this world looks, right? And that's a cool thing about Vampire, actually. But there are three main things that are going in the city that might interest them, or that might interfere with uh, any of their machinations they have going on. One, The Caitiff Maker. The Caitiff Maker has been for, as far as you know, Denali, as long as 8 decades to a century, has been just randomly making Caitiff, and no one knows why. This person does not reveal themselves. No one has any clue. They just create a vampire and leave them. Actually, the Caitiff Maker makes quite a few vampires. It's just most of them die. And sometimes it seems that from the little information you know, the caitiff maker will actually make a caitiff and leave them in weird places. Like there have been many times where the caitiff was left in bone Nor territory, knowing right off a brand new vampire is going to get torn apart instantly in that area. There's no way for it to survive. So no one understands exactly who the caitiff maker is or what the motivation is, right? It's really, really one of the big mysteries for the supernatural community. Even some of the other community which live here, we do in this city. We don't have a lot of the changeling influences, a little bit, but most of the other aspects of the world of darkness don't exist in Boston because the Magi control it so clearly. But the werewolves are an interesting issue as well. But the caitiff maker, that's one. Two, there is a new type of drug that is going around the city, and it's mainly in the college areas. It's not over here in Roxbury, which tends to be more of a standard type of drug, right? But this drug is really weird because it seems to be it seems to be awakening magi or creating them. All right. Now, initially, you might think that, oh, well, that's just something that Magi are doing because they want more numbers in their ranks. But you guys know, particularly Denali and Bob and the guys who've been here longer, that the Magi are not happy about it at all. They're really, really searching to figure out who's selling this drug and trying to crack down on it, but they have no clue. They are having zero success in finding out who's doing it, and every time they crack down, they do a raid or something like that, it just pops up somewhere else, right? So someone has created a drug that will awaken those who have magi ability, and no one knows who's doing it or why. So that's two. Okay. The third is a Camarilla prince has come into the city. This Camarilla prince actually is in Dorchester, which is very near to where you are. Actually, it's literally the neighborhood just to the southeast of you. Okay, and it's a pretty rough area too, but it's much better than Roxbury. But just to the southeast of you guys, in Dorchester, there's a prince set up, and this is it is a Ventru Camarilla Ventru prince. So it's kind of standard type of leadership, the blue bloods, the Ventru, and this prince has come in hot and heavy, and he's basically trying to take the city back and make it a vampire city. So these vampires, and which he has a pretty good contingent of vampires with him, and he seems to get plenty of reinforcements, are knocking heads with the Magi hardcore, right? And the last time any kind of big, vampire push was in the city was back in the early '60s, right? So it's been a long time since the vampires have made such a hard push. You don't know why they're doing it. You don't know how much the Camarilla is involved, or is it just simply the ambitions of a singular prince? You don't know this. What you do know is the prince has not talked to you directly, but he has sent agents, particularly to Benny's Tavern, to try to talk you up and chat you up and get you involved in the fight, to fight for the vampires, fight for our own kind, yada yada yada, type of propaganda. They're not forcing you to do anything. They're not coming at you that hard yet, but you have a feeling it's only a matter of time. So these are the three things that are going on in this city that are supernatural related. Any questions?
Yeah, sorry about the kids. Will the vampire prince actually let me continue my business?
I'm sorry, I can't. I couldn't hear you. Say it again. Yeah, don't worry about the kid, dude. It's all right. Just go ahead and say it again.
Okay, yeah, no, I moved her away. Sorry about that.
That's all right, dude.
Will the Vampire Prince actually let me continue my business, though? Is he going to let me sell my wares? If
If
so, maybe I want to side with him.
Well, meaning if he takes over the city, if he wins. You don't know. You haven't spoke to him about it, but you have been alive for a while. It's not like you're a new vampire. You've traveled all over, and princes tend not to care much about those kind of things, particularly if you're not making trouble. Which more than likely is why you work so hard to dilute, figure out how to dilute the blood in such a way that it was still a drug and not create ghouls, because that gets you in trouble. Right, so the princes themselves is probably what forced you, or at least was in the back of your mind, forced you to perfect your drug, right? So yeah, princes usually don't care about that as long as you're not breaking the masquerade, right? Now, you also know that the way the princes and vampires in general works, that if you become super successful, making big time money, more than likely they're going to come and take it over because it's profit. But that's not a problem. Yeah. Anybody else got
When,
a? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, one more, and I'll let other people go. Sorry. The vampire, or not the vampire, but the werewolf situation.
Mm.
Um, is there a way we could deal with that? From what I hear, werewolves pretty much just kill vampires. They eat them for breakfast.
Yes, they do. I mean, if you're going one
So
on
there's
one
no
against a
way
werewolf,
situation.
well, let me lay it out then like this. The thing with this system, and we haven't talked about the game system very much, but the thing in this system, most normal damage isn't going to really hurt you so badly. But when we get into lethal damage, this is when you really start taking actual levels of damage. And the trouble with the werewolf is its claws automatically do lethal damage, right? It is like the ultimate silver bullet. It is the ultimate MacGuffin. A werewolf's claws will damage everything, right? And that's what they're built for, because in this universe, in this cosmology, werewolves were created by the wild to cull the other creatures. So the werewolves are there to make sure that the human population doesn't get out of control, to make sure the vampires don't get out. Well, the vampires came a little bit later, but to make sure everything is culled and maintained. That's what their purpose is. Now, the things went crazy with the Weaver binding the wild, and excuse me, binding the worm, and all the craziness that went on that broke the world, right? Has put werewolves on the out, as it has put everything on the out. But they were created in this world to cull things. Therefore, a werewolf can damage everything. Now, and so therefore, that's an automatic issue. Now, if you take someone like Mox here, and with those ridiculous stats, Mox 1-on-1 against a normal werewolf is going to win, I think, right? But if against a really strong werewolf, it's going to be tough. Against a group of werewolves, oof, troublesome, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, can I glamour a werewolf though? Can I talk my way out of this situation?
That's a good question. Can werewolves be glamored? I don't recall offhand. Do you know the answer to that, Dinelli?
No, that actually will make them even more mad if you try to do that.
All right, you can't
I
do. There you
mean,
go.
you have to be like at least a fourth or a fifth generation to actually
Oh, that's
deal
right.
with
They
a
have
bit.
that chart. That's right. There's a chart in there. That's right. That's right. That's
Hmm.
right. Um,
Yeah, I was gonna say that if I remember that correctly, if you try that, they'll literally just go crazy and start killing everything.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep in mind also that the werewolf and the magi, they seem to be incredibly different things, but they're not really. A lot of the same type of magics and things that they do, moving through the Umbra, and all the things they do, they're actually very similar, oddly enough. And maybe this is why the Magi are interacting with the werewolves in the way they are. Maybe they're allies, for all you know. But the werewolves are very magical things in this world.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is they got magic. So if they don't tear you to
Mm.
pieces, they'll do something other nasty to you.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And this is why I made a decision to put Magi in the city, in charge of the city, and the werewolves on the border, on the western border, because you guys are outgunned. I mean, plain and simply, you're outgunned. That creates an interesting situation. You guys can't run into every single situation and deal with just physical violence. You can't. You have to think your way around issues. Now you have mocks in your back pocket, and mocks can rock and roll, but you're gonna have to think about what you do. Because you are outgunned. A single mage, especially if that mage is willing to risk paradox, can just wipe you all out instantly, right? But of course, they're risking paradox, which is a major issue for the magi. They are no joke. The magi are no joke, right? And a werewolf is certainly not. Now, I use the bone gnawers instead of some other. I could have done, some other far more dangerous groups of werewolves, but I chose the bone gnawers simply because it's a half-half measure, right? They're urban. They're kind of like flea-bitten mutts in a way, instead of being these beautiful, pristine, magic-ridden, monstrosities that some of these werewolf tribes can get into. You know what I mean?
And I do appreciate that because if you chose any other ones, we would be dead.
Oh no, no, yeah, yeah, yeah. If I chose walkers or something like that, you guys had no chance. But Bonors, at least you have a chance with them because they're kind of the idiots of the werewolf world, right? But they also fit perfectly
Cool.
because a bone
Yeah,
gnawer
yeah.
is an urban werewolf. So
Right, right. They fit,
yeah,
but they're not tied to the lands and they're not hyper aggressive
no, no.
comparatively to to the other ones where if somebody they would detect anybody stepping in their territory within seconds and they'll be on top of you within seconds.
Oh yeah, especially like the walkers or Fenris or something like that.
Mm,
Yeah,
right.
I'm not going to bring that in the situation. That's unfair.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that does that answer your werewolf question?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
One last question. I know there's a lot of books to, the
Oh
White
God.
Wolf
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
system. How much are you going to be using? Is it just the 20th anniversary edition that we're using, or are you going to have demons and other stuff kind of
I
involved?
might. I may.
That's us to find out during the sessions.
Yeah.
So it will
Don't.
be a surprise.
Yeah. Don't worry about that. It's not going to be anything that does not work within your ability. I am here to for two reasons of what we're doing this show. One, for us to have fun. I mean, that's first and foremost is for us to have an enjoyable time, and also secondly is to put forward an entertaining story for our viewers here. Now today the zero session is not necessarily a lot of fun because we're sitting here talking about and making things. But when we get into the storytelling, guys, I'm going to have a whole ton of pictures in a presentation, and I'm going to do like a visual storybook as we're telling our story. And every week, when things are added or new ideas, what direction you guys go, I'm going to add to that visual storybook. So it's going to be a very visual thing for the viewers, and also because we have actual role players here who know what they're doing, we're going to have it'll have a nice flow to it. They won't. I'm assuming you guys aren't going to do insane things that go against all the rules of the role player, right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
I
That's
we're
know.
not.
why
everyone.
I told most of them that I was able to talk to get common sense.
Yeah, that's true. And everybody,
Yeah,
please put up your right hand and say, "I vow not to be an idiot asshole." Okay, everybody, go ahead, raise your hand.
Bell not to game.
Hands are my
I'll be
left
an
hand's
idiot,
raised.
Okay, there we go.
asshole.
All right,
Yeah.
there we go. There
I,
we go.
I
I can
vow.
neither confirm or deny. I have my hand up.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
fine. But
I
no, no,
vow not.
seriously, that's why we wanted real role players over here for this one. I'm sorry, Mox. What'd you say?
I said I vow not to Game of Thrones or Captain Marvel the game.
There you go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. That deals with werewolves for Dodge's question. Anybody else have any questions about the scenarios that are ongoing?
Yeah, I do have a question about
Mm.
this prince. How just exactly how invasive has he gotten? Is it just like has he just gotten here? Are the mages like seriously concerned with this guy? Is it starting to spill over onto us?
Well, it is spilling over to you a little bit in the fact that they're sending agents to talk to you. Obviously, they know exactly who you are and where you are. They know this, right? Uh,
I mean, from the mages side of things.
yeah, no. From the major side of things, this prince, his name is. You don't know a lot about him, but and I haven't even fleshed him out yet, to be honest with you. But let's call him Eric. Um, um, he's a Ventru. He's come in heavy, and you don't know, you haven't heard any rumors of any kind of conversations or any kind of parlay. And Benny, of course, never gives that kind of. He doesn't talk about those kind of things. But Denali does have a
Mhm.
little bit of contact with the Magi, and Denali hasn't told you anything about any information he's got. All that Denali knows is the vampire showed up. They sent a large box to the Covenant of Salem's headquarters, which is sitting in the just north of the island of Back Bay. And in that box was the heads of a dozen magi.
Okay, so they're like coming in hardcore then.
Yes, they're coming in hot. And it
Okay.
has kicked off since then. There have been troubles, and of course, from the news, the human news point of view, this has only been going on for 2 weeks, by the way, 2 weeks. All right. This is a brand new thing. It's just happening. It's throwing chaos. And the news, what is happening, there are several things. There's gang war, of course. There's also been several gas leak explosions in the city and some fires. Very weird. And there's also been a couple of situations that they're wondering, was it terrorism? Right? So the news is, of course, being covered up, but there's a lot of crazy chaos, and mainly the humans think that there's a drug war going on in the city, and they're yelling and screaming at politicians, and rah, 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 all that kind of stuff is going on. You guys know that it's actually this prince coming in and making full war with the Magi. He didn't make terms. He didn't announce himself, as far as you know. The only thing he did was send a box to the Coven's headquarters filled of their members' heads. That's it.
Okay,
And
so
then,
not to be
Do
as
we have?
not to be funny, but he's coming in Roman basically.
yes, he is coming in Roman, absolutely.
Well, no. Do we have any idea where Benny falls on this?
No, you guys don't know anything at all about Benny. Benny is this frat boy, and every time you try to have a serious conversation with him, he simply says, "Have a drink," or he gets drunk himself. Benny seems useless, but then again, he doesn't seem useless. You don't really understand Benny. He's a bit of a mystery, but he's not. He's never been trouble to anything, and like I said, Denali's been in this house longer than anybody, other than Benny, and Benny's never caused trouble as far as Denali knows. I would assume Denali is kind of thinks he's just the vampire controlling factor of the Magi. He probably has some
Okay.
kind of relationship, but you don't know.
And what was this guy's
Okay.
name again? I'm sorry, you broke up when you were saying it.
I haven't really fleshed him out 100%, but I'll call him Eric. More than likely, no, let's call him. Yeah, I'm going to call him Eric for now. But when we have the game, I'll have another name because I'm going to actually am going to give him a Roman name,
Okay, no problem.
Prince Eric. Good name, thank you very much. But that's
What
a placeholder. I am going to change that.
what
Eric
what
All right.
Howard.
generation is the prince?
You wouldn't know that, dude. You wouldn't know that.
Okay.
But he is a prince, and he's in America. So simply being, you're old enough to know this. Does anybody have vampire lore? Or I think Denali has a cult, right? Pretty sure Denali has a high
No,
cult number.
all of my stuff
A
is
cult
tech-based.
or a cult?
A cult, dude.
Yes, yes, I have that.
Okay. Then you would know in general, an American prince is going to be eighth to tenth generation, usually,
Hmm.
Yes,
right?
to the pre-beefcake.
Yeah, they're serious for sure. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
because I was checking my character sheet. I have one pip in a cult, so my character would know that then.
Yeah,
So, all right.
Yeah.
that's kind of standard information. Over in Europe, they tend to be more sixth to eighth generation are the princes in those cities, but in America they're a bit younger.
And being a Ventrue, he'll probably be a damage-soaking presence monkey.
Probably he's a Ventru. Yeah, that's true. He's a Ventru prince. You know that. But yeah, no, he's coming in hot and heavy, and there's a lot of stuff going on. There hasn't been any kind of combat or battles or anything like that have happened in Roxbury. You've seen a lot of most of the action actually is taking place up in north of Back Bay, up in Boston proper in the city. Actually, even over in Dorchester, which is right next to you guys, where you know the prince is set up somewhere. You're not exactly sure where, but you know he's there somewhere. There hasn't been that much action over there at all. Mostly the prince is bringing it to the Magi, not the other way around. So,
Cool.
but it's too early. It's only been 2 weeks. You have no clue. You know how powerful the Magi are. You know that. But either the prince has just got way too many resources, or the Magi have not made a decision to go out and risk Paradox to that level.
Okay, another question I have on my character sheet, I do have one in drive, and my character was a drug dealer. What kind of car do you think I would be allowed to have
A
at
normal
down
car.
at? So,
What's your resource?
two resource level two.
Yeah, so pretty normal person. You are a drug dealer, so you probably got a little bit more than normal, I'd say. But yeah, I'd say just a normal car.
Okay, so I just pick maybe a freaking '89 fucking T-Bird or something, just a
Yeah,
random
sure,
car, right?
whatever. That's fine. Certainly don't have enough money to own a Lamborghini or something, but other than that, you're good to go.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Any other question, guys?
No, I'm pretty good right now.
How about you, Mox?
Let's roll.
Rock and roll. Denali?
I'm good.
Okay. Eagle 43 suggests, Dodge, that I give you a moped. Sweet.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, I do apologize, guys. I haven't paid a lot of attention to the chat because we were really busy what we're doing. And here in Bugbear's Basement, when we're running these kind of games, it's kind of hard for me to pay a lot of attention to the chat. Hopefully, the guys here, if they see something cool pop on up in the chat as we're playing, they will just bring it out themselves because in this kind of storyboarding game, I'm going to be a storybook game. I'm going to be doing a lot behind the scenes, so I'm not gonna. It's not going to be easy for me to pay attention to the chat. So just as we go forward, guys, keep in mind that just keep a kind of a corner of your eye on the chat, and if you see someone say something really interesting or funny, just to shout it out. Okay. All right. Well, there
Sounds
you go.
good.
Sounds good. All right, guys.
Mm.
So let me stop doing that, and we're going to go ahead and end for the day. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Vampire, the World of Darkness in general, is really interesting. It's really great storytelling system, which makes it really good for doing a live stream. So I think they go hand in hand, you know. And we worked out today. The characters are all have their place in the world. Everyone is kind of interconnected. It worked out really well, I think. Everyone happy with the team we got here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
it worked.
I think it works good. Yeah, I think it works well.
Mhm.
And of course, there's a ton of things going on in the city, and you never know. Maybe these guys will pursue something completely different than I've said, and do something completely aside from that, and that's fine. That is Vampire. They can do whatever they want, right? That's the. It is not a linear system. So we'll see what decisions they make, and I do suggest that you four. Now, I know we were thinking about maybe having a fifth or another, and if that fifth shows up for session one next week, I'm good. But if they can't, then we're going to go with Justice Four. Okay. But I
Uh,
think yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, actually, I just want to tell you, yeah, my buddy, he just got out of the hospital about a week ago. He
Oh,
said he's gonna watch,
okay, okay,
and he's gonna run a game on my Discord privately, but he's not fit, so it's gonna be us four.
okay. Good, good. So we're going to go with this four. Everyone's going to show up every week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right?
Right.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Right hand. I swear that I'm going to show up on time every week. Go ahead. Say it. Say it.
I swear I'm gonna show up on time every week,
Okay.
Dad.
Oh God.
Yeah, no, I'll
Alcohol's
be here,
involved.
dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
I, I'll be here.
I've been disappointed before, man. Okay, but anyway, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll see what they go. What I was trying to say was, I encourage you four to get together on your own without me, and have a conversation during this next week or two, and make a decision on how you want to interact with what I've laid down. Make a decision as you yourselves, because you guys have been your characters have been living together for a while. some shorter than some less, but you guys know each other. So sit and have that kind of private conversation and make a decision where you're going to go, and I will interact with it properly. But other than that, guys, thank you very much for joining us. We know this is a very niche thing, but we're very happy to have everybody who's stuck in this whole time. We appreciate it. And Dinelli, take us out, man.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for Bugbear's Basement. Tomorrow we'll be watching Blade 2 for Bunny Vision Movie Night.
Ooh, Bunny Vision Movie
Um,
Night.
Excellent. Join my newsletter if you haven't at dinalescomics at gmail.com. The link is in the description. It'll be awesome because I'm making a comic book and you may be interested in the type of comic that I'll be making as it comes out, and exclusive offers of perks and stuff when I launch the campaign. But as always, your perception shapes your reality, so always make it a good one.
Namaste.
I would say
Later, guys.
Take it
aloha.
easy.
Bye.